I was high in my theater room on drugs and alcohol, and it was coming down, and I was trying to fall asleep, and I thought I was sleeping, and a big bright light came, and my eyes were closed. And in that moment, I felt something touch me, and that's when I heard that voice tell me to change, to turn from my wicked ways. And I didn't know if that was a warning that I would die, or that my family was gonna find me dead, or what. But in that moment, that's when I changed my life. I just stopped doing drugs at the moment. I didn't stop drinking it, but I did stop the drugs. And that was what really brought me to God, was that moment.
My name is Bethany. I'm 32 years old. I was born in Regina, Saskatchewan. I'm a member from Little Black Bear First Nations. I identify as an Indigenous person. I'm Cree, Soto, Blackfoot, and North Dakota Indian. I have 3 children, Madison, Braden, and Jeremy. I'm a wife to Matthew and a business entrepreneur. The first 3 years of my life, I lived on Gordon's First Nations, which is my dad's reserve. We then moved into the city to be closer to other family. After the loss of my parents' firstborn, Jeremy, my mother turned to addictions. I was born from a drug-addicted mother. My parents together had 3 children, Jeremy, who passed away, Joshua, and myself. We grew up poor. Mom stayed home, and Dad tried to work to pay bills and put food on the table. I remember doing food bank runs with my mom. I don't have the best memories of my mother raising us. Since as long as I can remember, it was my brother Joshua who looked after me. Joshua would walk us to school and make sure I got up in the morning so we could make it in time for school. We were pretty close siblings when we did live together. My mother would take off on us children, or she would take me with her to her party houses. My dad would come look for me when he was done working. Dad struggled with Mom always leaving us. This is when I watched my dad give his life to the Lord. When Mom wasn't with us, he would take us to church services. Sometimes it felt as though we lived at church. I remember playing under the pews and chairs. My mom was a Mormon Christian, my dad an open Christian. I remember spending time with my dad driving around Regina. He would listen to gospel music and cry. I was so young. I never understood why. At night before bed, we would kneel at the end of our bed with a Bible and a photo of my mom. We would pray that she would overcome addictions and come back home to us. When I was 7 years old, my mom asked my dad for a divorce. My dad was kicked out of his local church due to the divorce. So from what I can remember, we started visiting different churches. I really enjoyed the Pentecostal church we went to in Regina, Saskatchewan. It was filled with people of color. They would sing, dance, and play the tambourines. This is where I learned where my name Bethany came from. I was told it was the town of the sick and poor. I felt that God gave me a purpose with my name. I always enjoyed the energy in the room. I would watch my dad sing, laugh, and cry. I would watch other adults be filled with the Holy Spirit. Sometimes I wasn't sure what I was watching or if it was real, but I felt love from all who were in the church. I really cared about my dad and my brother. However, I really missed having a mom. So I asked my dad if I could go live with his brother Charles and wife Donna. Donna was my mom's best friend at the time. They were close sister-in-laws. She treated me like her own daughter. Dad was sad and prayed about it. The next morning, he said that he loved me and that if it was what my heart desired, he would let me go. Our whole family fell apart. In 1996, I relocated to Kelowna to live with my new parents. They also had alcohol addictions. I was so young, I never thought that they had a problem. My cousins would come over while the adults would drink. We would play and watch over after the younger kids. I was in grade 2 going to Quigley Elementary. I found a church down the road and asked my new guardians if it was okay if I went to kids club. Each Thursday to do crafts, bake, and sing gospel songs. My parents were very cultural. We spent time going to programs with the local friendship center. We would attend cultural ceremonies and sundances, weepy ceremonies, and powwows. I was a jingle dress dancer when I was 8 years old, but I never continued dancing after that year. Life changed about a year later. I was placed into foster care for a short time when my parents went to AA and parenting classes. Alcohol addiction caused havoc to all our lives once again. I was so unhappy in foster care. I would eat till I made myself physically sick. I was asked by workers where I wanted to live. I said here in Kelowna with my parents, and if not, with my dad back in Saskatchewan. I remained in Kelowna till 2013. We all moved back to Regina to be closer to family again. This is where I drifted away from God. I was 14, drinking, smoking marijuana, and going to house parties, getting involved with high school made-up gangs. Regina life is so heartbreaking for a large number of my Indigenous people. We're born into families with addiction and gang violence, never ever really getting the opportunity to grow. We are what we are taught. I figured I was good. I had control. I didn't need God. In 2016, we moved back to Kelowna. I reconnected with all my old friends, and they noticed a change in me. My mind became darker and more negative. I started hanging out with older adults. I was 16 at this time, and I was hanging out with 22-year-olds. I'd watch them do hard drugs, and they would offer. I would always refuse it until I turned 18. I started to experiment more. After all, for me, it wasn't abnormal to drink or do drugs because everyone around me growing up was consumed by it. 19 years old, I met Matthew, and we started dating on Christmas Day 2007. This is when I started to talk about God again. I told Matt he was my gift from God, because when I was 8 years old, I would lay in bed and pray that God would bless me with a man who would love me and help me raise a family. We didn't base our foundation on God, we just worked on us. Then in 2010, we had our first child. Shortly after her birth, I went back to drinking and taking off with my friends. Then shortly after we found out that we were expecting again in 2011, we had Braden. I did the same thing and went back to drinking with my friends after his birth. When I was 27 years old, my birth mother passed away in June 2015. My whole world went into complete darkness. I started to numb myself out. I felt like I was stuck with her demons that she never beat. I was drinking a lot. I told Matt I wanted to start going to church because we needed God. I needed God. He agreed I needed something. Then we got pregnant again, and I was angry the first 7 months because I didn't want another baby. I didn't want to refrain from numbing out. However, of course I did for my unborn child. After Jeremy's birth, I fell deeper into depression and started hiding my addictions from Matthew and my kids. My mind wouldn't stop racing, making me hate myself more. I thought I was having fun. It was only drinking. It was only drugs. If only my mother was here, she would have understood me. I was so full of shame for my choices and who I was. I went to my doctor's office and got an assessment done. I was struggling with anxiety and depression and was put on meds to help numb me more. I had the I didn't care about anything mentality, and I told Matt again, I want to go to church. I need God. March 2019, I was gearing up to go to church, but Matt had other plans to go to work. So I got me and the 3 kids ready because the Lord already knew what I needed. Sitting in the van, my cell phone rings. It's Matthew. He told me God had a plan. It wasn't for him to go to work that day. It was to go to church as a family. I was scared to take this step on my own. This is when my true healing started. All I wanted to do was sing worship music and sing to the Lord. I was still stuck in addiction. Each Sunday after service, I would leave with the message that day and really observe what I felt inside. A huge one was about being rooted. I cried because I felt like all my roots were rotted. I felt like I was underwater drowning and I couldn't catch a breath. After service, I would spend time in the shower trying to make myself clean again, asking God to take my shame, abandonment, and all negative thoughts away from me. I wanted out of my own prison. September 2020, I hit my rock bottom. I told Matt to divorce me, and I wanted to take my own life. I was so tired of the darkness I was living in. I started to hear a voice inside of me telling me, it's okay, child, you're just going through things right now. Ride the wave and let it play out. I got off my antidepressants. I felt like they made me worse. This is where my crossroads came. I had to choose. Am I going to be a mother and a wife, or am I going to let my addictions consume me? God told me in a whisper, turn from your wicked ways. Your mother chose this path. Would you meet the same fate and pass on your demons onto your children? From that day forward, I knew I wasn't alone. After me wanting to take my life, I apologized in embarrassment to my in-laws. They told me they loved me and then my father-in-law turned me towards the mirror and told me that I needed to forgive the person that was looking back at me. I didn't want to feel like this anymore. I didn't want to numb myself anymore. And God has been helping me work through my childhood traumas. I have refrained from substance use. I have been unlearning a lot of negative behaviors, and today I'm noticing where they root from. I died and God renewed me. He gave me another perspective on life. I want to live for Him more than I've ever wanted to. Today I walk on clouds. When I look out from myself, I see all the beauty He has created. And when I look at myself, I know I am one of His creations. I want everyone to know the love and freedom Jesus gave me, and I want all to feel the grace and love that we cannot find in our fellow humans, but in our Father. My marriage is better, my relationship with my children is stronger, and most of all, I know now I have a purpose.
I'm learning to be a disciple of Jesus, and I want to help bring the light to all of God's children. Most of all, He helped me break the chains of prison I was living in.
August 28th, I made a commitment and I was baptized. I truly believe God sent His Son Jesus to die on the cross for all of our sins, that He rose from the tomb, and that one day He shall return again.